Have you ever heard the chilling whisper of the wind across the waves, carrying a tale not of salty air, but of something far more sinister? Today we set sail on a journey into the shrouded realm of ghost ships. From the spectral glow of the Flying Dutchman to the haunting silence of the Mary Celeste, we'll dive into the chilling mysteries and legends that have sent shivers down sailors' spines for centuries. And I'm ready to do it all with you today. Welcome to the Lore Chronicles. The radio crackled with static, the only sound besides the rhythmic slap of waves against the hull of the research vessel, the Argo. Captain Alina Ramirez gripped the wheel, her brow furrowed. They were nearing the Devil's Triangle, a region in the Sargasso Sea infamous for disappearances. It was also their target. A legendary ghost ship, the Aurora, had last been spotted here decades ago. The Aurora wasn't your typical ghost ship. Legend spoke of a magnificent Spanish galleon laden with ill-gotten treasure, cursed to sail the Sargasso Sea forever. Unlike the Flying Dutchman, a harbinger of doom, the Aurora was said to beckon ships closer, its spectral crew desperate for solace. Alina, a scientist more than a believer, scoffed at the myths, but the Aurora was a historical anomaly, and unraveling its disappearance could be her career's peak. The first sign was an unnatural stillness. The ever-present wind died, replaced by an eerie silence. Then, a faint glow appeared on the horizon, a spectral green that pulsed like a dying heartbeat. As they drew closer, the Aurora materialized from the mist. It was breathtakingly beautiful, its ornate carvings glowing with an otherworldly light, but an unsettling silence hung heavy in the air, broken only by the creak of the ship's rigging, like skeletal fingers scraping bone. A strange calm washed over Alina. An overwhelming urge to answer the ship's silent call gripped her. Against her better judgment, she ordered a lifeboat lowered. Her first mate, a weathered sailor named Reyes, grabbed her arm. "Capitana, it's not right." Alina shook him off, a strange compulsion driving her. As she rowed closer, the spectral figures on deck came into view. Crew of skeletal pirates, their hollow eyes fixed on her. A single figure stood at the helm, a captain in a tattered uniform, his face contorted in a silent scream. Panic surged through Alina. This wasn't a haunting, it was a trap. The figures began to move, reaching out with skeletal hands just as they were about to grab her. Reyes' voice boomed from behind. "Turn back, Capitana!" He commanded the Argo and was steering it away. The spectral figures let out a collective wail as the Aurora faded into the mist, the green light swallowed by the darkness. Back on the Argo, Alina felt drained, the strange calm replaced by chilling dread. Reyes, his face pale, explained a legend passed down through generations of sailors. The Aurora's crew wasn't cursed, they were damned, forever reliving their final moments. A mutiny gone wrong, a captain betrayed by his own. They sought not solace, but vengeance. The Argo left the Devil's Triangle behind, the encounter leaving a permanent scar on Alina. The Aurora might have been a figment of myth and madness, but the chilling touch of the spectral pirates felt all too real. The legend may have been fabricated, but the sea held its own secrets, some best left undisturbed. The air hung thick with the smell of salt and decay as Kai anchored its fishing trawler, the Sea Sprite, beside the derelict freighter. It jutted from the fog like a skeletal claw, its name Demeter barely a whisper on the rusted hull. Kai, a hardened fisherman who scoffed at ghost stories, dismissed the rumors surrounding the Demeter. It was a salvage opportunity, nothing more. He secured a line and clambered onto the rusted deck. The silence was deafening, broken only by the groaning of the ship and the rhythmic crash of waves against its hull. The Demeter was a graveyard. Rust had claimed every surface, and a layer of dust coated everything untouched by the elements. As Kai ventured deeper, the air grew colder, prickling sensation crawling up his spine. Then, a sound. A faint, rhythmic tapping, like a skeletal fingernail against metal, seemed to come from the hold. Cautiously, Kai descended the rusted ladder. The air drew denser, the stench of mildew thickening. The tapping grew louder, accompanied by a muffled voice, a language he couldn't decipher. When he reached the bottom, he hesitated, heart hammering against his ribs. The hold was a cavernous darkness. With a deep breath, He flicked on his headlamp. The beam sliced through the gloom, revealing a horrifying sight. Dozens of skeletal figures were crammed into the hold, their hollow eye sockets seeming to bore into him. They were chained in the floor, their emaciated bodies contorted in postures of eternal suffering. The tapping grew frantic, their skeletal mouths agape in silent screams. Panic seized Sky. He stumbled back, the light beam skittering across the hold, revealing a massive inscription carved into the wall. In a language he barely recognized from an old shipwreck documentary, it read, "Betrayed, entangled, forever bound." Kai tripped, his headlamp clattering to the floor and plunging him into darkness. The air in the hold grew frigid, and the tapping morphed into a cacophony of raspy whispers that seemed to emanate from all around him. He scrambled to his feet, hands flailing in the dark, desperate to find the ladder and escape, but his fingers brushed only against cold, unforgiving metal. A voice, raspy and ancient, echoed in the hold.
"Join us, brother. We are forever bound."
Then a skeletal hand clamped onto his wrist, its icy grip sending a jolt of terror through him. The whispers grew to a deafening roar, and the darkness seemed to press in on him. The faint glow of dawn filtered through a crack in the hatch, illuminating a single terrified scream echoing from the Demeter's hold. The rest? Silence. The Sea Sprite bobbed alone beside the freighter, its anchor line severed. Kai was nowhere to be found. Only the inscription on the hold wall remained, chilling testament to the fate of those who dared disturb the Demeter's eternal slumber. Okay, you've heard some awesome stories here. Are they true? Not quite. But that's okay. I'm going to tell you some true stories now. I love these ghost ship stories. They are wonderful and creepy. Now, the stories I told earlier have taken bits from these other ghost stories that exist, and these stories have been around for many, many years. Let's take a listen to each one, and then at the end, we'll see if there's any truth behind each story. We will start with the Mary Celeste. The Mary Celeste, an American merchant brigantine, set sail from New York City on November 17, 1872, bound for Genoa, Italy. Aboard were Captain Benjamin Briggs, his wife Sarah, their young daughter Sophia, and a crew of 7. 8 days later, on December 5, 1872, the Canadian brigantine Del Gratia spotted the Mary Celeste adrift and seemingly abandoned in the Atlantic Ocean, roughly 400 miles east of the Azores. The Mary Celeste was under partial sail, but there was no sign of a lifeboat. Upon boarding, the Del Gratia crew found the ship in a disheveled state. The hatches were open, some sails were ripped, and the compass was broken. There was about 3 feet of water in the hold, but the cargo of industrial alcohol remained largely intact. The crew's personal belongings were undisturbed, and a 6-month supply of food and water was still on board. Most importantly, there was no sign of Captain Briggs, his family, or the crew. The Mary Celeste's disappearance sparked a frenzy of speculation. Theories ranged from mutiny to pirate attacks to encounters with water spouts or mythical creatures. The last entry in the ship's log was dated 10 days prior to its discovery, offering no clues to the fate of those aboard. The Mary Celeste was eventually towed into Gibraltar, where it underwent a lengthy salvage hearing. The investigation failed to uncover any evidence of foul play or struggle. The cause of the water in the hold and the reason for abandoning the ship remain a mystery to this day. And of course, the Mary Celeste story has captured the imagination for over 150 years, becoming a byword for unexplained maritime disappearances. The lack of a clear resolution continues to fuel speculation and theories, leaving the fate of the Mary Celeste and its crew one of history's most enduring maritime mysteries. The allure of the Mary Celeste lies in the lack of a definitive scientific explanation. However, there are several theories that attempt to explain the events based on what we know about the ship, its cargo, and the prevailing conditions. One theory suggests the Mary Celeste encountered rough seas that caused damage to the ship. The faulty chronometer found on deck could have led Captain Briggs to believe they were closer to land than they actually were. Additionally, a disassembled pump on board could have hindered their ability to remove water from the hold, leading them to believe the ship was sinking faster than it actually was. In a moment of panic, they may have abandoned ship in the lifeboat, only to have it capsize in the rough seas. Another theory is that the Mary Celeste was carrying a large amount of alcohol in barrels, so fumes from leaking barrels could have built up in the hold, creating a flammable and potentially explosive atmosphere. This could explain the disassembled pump, perhaps an attempt to improve ventilation. If a spark ignited the fumes, it could have caused a small explosion, further fueling fears of a catastrophic event and prompting the crew to abandon ship. Another theory proposes that the Mary Celeste encountered a waterspout, a powerful and localized tornado that forms over water. A waterspout could have caused significant damage to the ship and its sails, forcing the crew to abandon ship in a hurry. So it's important to note that none of these theories are conclusive. The lack of evidence from the lifeboat and the crew's remains continues to be a major obstacle. Additionally, the historical context of maritime practices and safety protocols in the 19th century needs to be considered when evaluating these explanations. The Flying Dutchman, a spectral ship said to be eternally doomed to sail the oceans, has haunted maritime legends for centuries. The exact origins of the myth are murky, with variations emerging from 17th century Dutch folklore. The most common story revolves around Captain Hendrik van der Decken, a stubborn and ambitious Dutchman. During a fierce storm near the Cape of Good Hope, van der Decken swore in a fit of rage that he would round the Cape, even if it took him until eternity. Defying the elements and divine will, he sealed his fate. His ship became a ghost ship, forever condemned to sail the seas, never reaching port, and its sighting considered an omen of bad luck or impending doom. Other versions depict the Flying Dutchman as a cursed vessel by the devil himself, the crew forever damned for their wickedness. Descriptions of the ship vary from a spectral vessel glooming with an eerie light to a dilapidated hulk shrouded in fog. Reported sightings of the Flying Dutchman have persisted throughout history, with accounts from sailors around the globe. Some claim to have seen the ship itself, while others report ghostly lights or spectral figures on the horizon. The veracity of these sightings remains unproven, adding to the mystique of the legend. Now, the Flying Dutchman is a powerful symbol of human hubris and the dangers of defying fate. Its enduring legacy lies in the chilling reminder of the potential consequences for those who overstep their bounds. All right, so what's the science behind this one? There are none. There are some variations and spookier encounters, like the spectral messages. While some believe seeing the Flying Dutchman is a bad omen, others report stranger encounters. The spectral crew is said to sometimes hail passing ships, desperately trying to send messages to land or loved ones long dead. These messages are often pleas or warnings, but some tales say fulfilling their request dooms the recipient to join them on the eternal voyage. Not all encounters with the Dutchman are passive. Legends tell of ships being lured into treacherous waters or storms by the Dutchman's ghostly glow. Others describe spectral figures climbing around unsuspecting ships, draining the life from the crew or even replacing them entirely. Have you ever heard of Davy Jones' locker? Some versions weave the Flying Dutchman into the myth of Davy Jones and his locker, a purgatory for damned sailors. The Dutchman is said to be captained by a Dutchman condemned by Jones, forever ferrying the souls of the wicked to their final judgment. A particularly creepy detail is the identity of the Dutchman's captain. Some legends claim that the ship is perpetually unmanned, a ghostly vessel sailing itself. Others say the captain is forever bound to the helm, unable to find solace or escape his curse. The captain's appearance varies, sometimes a skeletal figure consumed by rage, other times a weary sailor eternally regretting his oath. The Flying Dutchman's legend continues to capture imagination because of its lack of definitive origin or explanation. It's another cautionary tale, a metaphor for the unforgiving sea, or a genuine supernatural phenomenon, who knows? The unanswered questions and eerie encounters ensure the Flying Dutchman will likely continue to haunt the seas and imaginations for centuries to come. Now, unfortunately, the Flying Dutchman doesn't have a single scientific explanation because it's a legendary ship, not a real-world phenomenon. Science deals with the observable and measurable, and the Flying Dutchman falls firmly into the realm of folklore and superstition. However, there are some scientific concepts that could explain the reported sightings. Let's start with Fata Morgana. This is a natural optical phenomenon caused by temperature differences in the atmosphere. It can create distorted images of objects on the horizon, including ships. Sailors encountering a Fata Morgana might mistake a distant, real ship for the spectral Flying Dutchman. Then you have mass psychosis. Shared experiences and heightened emotions at sea can lead to mass hallucinations. Once sailor believes they see the Dutchman, the suggestion can spread quickly among the crew, leading to multiple sightings of the same phenomenon. Pareidolia. We've talked about this before on this channel. This is the human tendency to perceive familiar patterns in random stimuli. A ship seen in a low-light condition or through fog could be misinterpreted as the Flying Dutchman due to our brains searching for recognizable shapes. All right, let me pass this back to you. Have you heard of these ghost ship stories before? I grew up near the sea and spent a decent amount of time on the water as a child, teenager, and young adult. I know for a fact that when you stare out at the vast ocean and see nothing but water on the horizon, it can get creepy. It's easy for our mind to play tricks. You start seeing things that are not really there. Has anything like that ever happened to you? Let me hear about it in the comments below. And remember, if you like this sort of content, be sure to leave us a like and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already. The algorithm likes that sort of thing, and it helps us present this content in front of our growing audience. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.